After the events of Sonic 06, this game was technically erased from the main timeline. Silver and Blaze sealed Iblis in the future with Blaze's sacrifice, while Sonic and Elise erased those events by blowing out the flames. After this, all the characters forgot what happened in the game. Even Silver's origin was altered by the timeline change. But was this timeline really gone for good? There are some hints and statements that can suggest otherwise. First of all, let's look at Sonic Generations. In this game, we revisit zones from the past titles, including Crisis City. Once you finish the level, you can talk to Blaze, and she says something interesting. I never thought I'd end up in Crisis City again. Strange things just keep happening in other worlds. It seems she still remembers the city. But how is that possible if the events of Sonic 06 were supposedly wiped from everyone's memories after the flames were extinguished? This isn't the only example. In Team Sonic Racing, there's an interesting dialogue between Sonic and Silver in the Japanese version that implies Sonic still remembers the events of Sonic 06. He makes a joke about the first time they met, and Silver replies that he has no idea what Sonic is talking about. Surprisingly, it looks like Sonic and Blaze weren't fully affected by the memory wipe, or at least not completely. They seem to remember places from the game, and Sonic even recalls some events. It's strange, though, that they are the only ones who remembered anything, while Silver, one of the three main protagonists, can't remember the events at all. Something curious also happens in Shadow Generations. We see Mephiles again. He tries to gather enough power to restore his timeline, but Shadow stops him. It's interesting that he wants to come back, and it gives us a possible clue about what's happening with the alternate future. Somehow, the Time Meter may have restored parts of Sonic 06 events into the main timeline while we were going through Sonic Generations. That could explain why we see Crisis City, Kingdom Valley, and Mephiles again. Interestingly, only some characters seem able to remember the game. Even Shadow doesn't remember Mephiles or Kingdom Valley. This brings up another question. If Sonic 06 was partially restored to the canon after Sonic Generations, does that mean the future from Sonic 06 still exists? Metaphysically, that shouldn't be possible, but then again, we're talking about a Blue Hedgehog franchise full of weird time travel rules. I think it's plausible. As we all know, the future of the Sonic universe changes significantly between the one we saw in Sonic 06 and the one in Sonic Rivals. In one, the future is completely destroyed and desolate, with only 2 survivors. In the other, it's essentially the same ruined world, but destroyed by an entity called Ifrit instead of Iblis. In both futures, Silver is born at some determined point in time. The problem is that the events of both games can't really coexist. Or can they? What if this timeline still exists somewhere? This is technically possible, especially when you realize that Sega has officially featured 2 different versions of Silver. Yeah? I was surprised too. There's no official answer, but in the mobile game Sonic Runners, you can unlock different characters and upgrade them. The curious thing is that Silver has 2 versions of himself in the game. One is the current Silver we know, but the other is ESP Silver. With this description, following his split from Blaze, Silver has grown stronger and has discovered his true power. This is not the only appearance of this version. He also shows up in the Roblox game Sonic Speed Simulator during a special event. His dialogue suggests he's not from the current timeline and comes from another world, one that sounds a lot like the future we saw in Sonic 06. So what's really going on? It's hard to find a definite answer, but I think there's a way to interpret all of this. And even if some of these games aren't fully canon, we can still take elements from them to help answer questions left by the main games. For example, Sonic Runners explains why we still see Wisp after the events of Sonic Colors. Not everything should be taken literally, but it's a good way to make sense of some lingering questions. As we know, there are 2 Silvers. One from the post-06 games who comes from the Rivals future, the current Silver we see in most mainline games, and the Silver from Sonic 06, who comes from a future destroyed by Iblis and has unlocked his full potential after those events. Sonic can still remember parts of Sonic 06, and so can Blaze. But Silver himself cannot. After considering all these hints, here's my theory. What if blowing off the flames didn't completely erase those events? What if the Silver comes from a timeline that was simply forgotten? It's not impossible to believe that the events of Sonic 06 weren't fully erased after what Sonic and Elise did. Or perhaps they were partially restored after the events of Sonic Generations. Specifically in Shadow Generations, Mephiles has some striking lines during the boss fight.
I will and restore myself to the timeline.
Mephiles' strong will to return to the main timeline might explain what happened. The events of Sonic 06, or at least part of them, were partially restored after Sonic Generations. Even if most characters only remember fragments as a déjà vu, traces of those events remain in their minds. We even see this in Sonic Colors, where Silver and Blaze meet each other for the first time in the main timeline, yet they both act like they've met before. A theory I've been thinking about while making this video is that something similar, but not identical, to the Legend of Zelda Timeline Split might be happening here. Let me explain. If you've played The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, you know it created a time split. What if something like that occurred in Sonic? Elise blows out the flames of Solaris, and Blaze seals Iblis using the Chaos Emeralds, leaving Silver alone in that timeline. After that, history changes its course, and Sonic simply appears at the Solana Festival, but that figure still continued to exist. That would explain why ESP Silver can remember everything that happened in that timeline, because he comes from it, a figure that was altered but not completely deleted. Then, when Eggman discovered the Time Eater's ability to restore and manipulate timelines, he accidentally broke pieces of that alternate timeline back into the main one, including fragments in the memories of some characters. And of course, how could they not remember when they are running through the levels where Iblis caused all the destruction? By the way, this is a good moment to remind you all to subscribe, like the video, and share it with your friends if you are enjoying it. It really helps. Silver obviously can't remember anything because he's not the same Silver as ESP Silver. Some people might ask why Blaze can remember these events while Silver cannot. The answer might be pretty simple. Blaze doesn't come from the future like Silver does. She comes from another dimension that serves as a counterpart to Sonic's world. It's still unclear why she appears with Silver in Sonic 06, but I've found some solid theories that might explain why she retains those memories. What was Blaze doing in Silver's future if she comes from another dimension? This is one of the hardest questions to answer, since the game never explains it. There's a theory that the Blaze that we see in Sonic 06 is the original Blaze, a character who originally came from the future, just like Silver. After the events of the game, when she sacrifices herself to seal Iblis with the Chaos Emeralds, she asks Silver to send her to another dimension. That dimension would become the Soul Dimension we see in Sonic Rush, where she's reborn as a baby and eventually becomes its princess. This theory makes some sense and could explain why she has memories of Crisis City, remembering parts of her previous life. However, some official material contradicts it. The Japanese manual of Sonic 06 states that Blaze is the guardian of the Soul Emeralds, which only exists in the Soul Dimension, so while the theory is interesting, it might not be accurate. Another question that comes up when thinking about Silver's timeline: where is Eggman Nega? First, we need to understand where Eggman Nega comes from. Depending on the game, his origin changes. In the Rush games, he's from the Soul Dimension and acts as a Blaze's Eggman counterpart. In the Rival Saga, he's from the future 2000 years ahead, and is a descendant of Eggman who's disappointed by his ancestor failures. If the second origin is true, why doesn't Eggman Nega appear in the future of Sonic 06? And which origin is the real one? A good explanation for the first question is that Eggman Nega simply doesn't exist in Sonic 06 future because the apocalypse happened. In the new timeline, Eggman would have had descendants normally. As for his confusing origin, he also claims to come from another dimension. So maybe he's from an alternate future dimension? I don't think so. We all know how Eggman operates. He lies constantly to achieve his goals. It wouldn't be surprising if his descendant did the same, lying to Blaze and the others to make himself seem like he belonged to the Soul Dimension when he actually came from the future. Overall, I think the lore surrounding Silver and his future is really cool. In the comics, we see more of what happens after Forces, and it's interesting how time seems to flow linearly there. Sega's logic with time travel is definitely weird. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, like, and share it with your friends so I know you like it. Without further ado, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!